Do you feel it? That shift in the air when you stop begging for approval and start moving in silence? That quiet tension when the crowd realizes you no longer need their applause to breathe? That is not paranoia. That is pressure. And it is not on you. It is on them. Because the moment you figured out how to win alone, you changed the rules of the game they were secretly rigging against you. You stopped waiting for permission. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped asking to be chosen. And now, somewhere in the dark corners of their comfortable illusions, they are staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, wondering how you slipped through their fingers. You see, people are comfortable when you depend on them. Dependency is predictable. It is controllable. When you need validation, they can ration it. When you need support, they can withhold it. When you need love, they can manipulate it. But when you decide to build your empire in solitude, brick by silent brick, something terrifying happens. You become uncontrollable. You stop reacting. You stop chasing. You stop negotiating your worth. And that is when they start losing sleep. Not because you attacked them, not because you exposed them, but because you no longer revolve around them. Winning alone is not glamorous. It is cold. It is quiet. It is eating alone, training alone, thinking alone, building alone. It is facing your worst fears without an audience. It is failing in private and rising without applause. Most people cannot survive that silence. They need noise. They need distractions. They need someone to blame. But you chose isolation over illusion. You chose discipline over drama. You chose progress over popularity. And now they are confused because they thought loneliness would break you. Instead, it sharpened you. When you stopped explaining your moves, they started inventing stories. When you stopped sharing your plans, they started guessing your next step. When you stopped reacting to disrespect, they started escalating it, hoping to provoke you back into your old self. But you did not respond. You evolved. And evolution is terrifying to those who stayed the same. They preferred the version of you that doubted itself, the version that second-guessed every decision, the version that needed reassurance. That version was easy to manage. This one is not. Understand something dark and liberating at the same time. Your independence exposes their insecurity. The moment you proved you could survive without their validation, you forced them to confront their own dependency. They see you walking alone, steady, focused, untouchable, and it unsettles them. Because deep down, they know they cannot do the same. They need the crowd. They need approval. They need constant reassurance that they matter. You built your confidence in isolation. They borrowed theirs from attention, and borrowed confidence expires. So let them lose sleep. Let them wonder how you became so calm. Let them replay your transformation in their restless minds. Because you did not win by crushing them. You won by detaching from them. You stopped trying to fit into rooms that were shrinking your potential. You stopped watering relationships that were draining your roots. You stopped dimming your light to make others comfortable in their darkness. And in that decision, you became dangerous. Not loud, not reckless. Dangerous in the most unsettling way. You became self-sufficient. And when a person learns how to stand alone without fear, without noise, without permission, the world trembles quietly. Not because you are chasing them, but because they can no longer control you. They never feared your noise. Noise is easy to ignore. It is the silence that unsettles them now. The silence you wear like armor. The silence that says you no longer argue, no longer chase, no longer prove. That silence is not weakness. It is calculation. And while they scroll through your absence trying to decode it, you are building something they cannot see. That is what disturbs them. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer reacting on cue. You have become the storm that does not announce its arrival. There was a time when you sought understanding. You wanted them to see your vision, to validate your ambition, to clap for your effort. But every time you exposed your blueprint, someone tried to redraw it. Every time you revealed your next move, someone tried to sabotage it. So you learned. Not with bitterness, but with awareness. You realized that the strongest foundations are poured underground, invisible, unapplauded, untouched. And once you embraced that truth, your growth accelerated in the dark where no one could tamper with it. People grow uncomfortable when they cannot measure you. When they cannot track your progress, they underestimate it. They mistake your quiet for stagnation. They assume your distance is failure. And that illusion becomes their comfort. They sleep better believing you are stuck. They laugh easier thinking you are lost. But what they do not understand is that you withdrew to refine, not to retreat. You stepped back to sharpen your edge. You disconnected to rewire your focus. And while they celebrated too early, you were restructuring your entire existence. Winning alone forces you to confront yourself without distraction. There is no one to blame when you fall short. No one to credit when you succeed. Every mistake echoes louder. Every victory feels purer. In that isolation, you met your shadows. The doubt, the fear, the insecurity that used to whisper when the room went quiet. But instead of silencing them with noise, you studied them. You dissected your weaknesses. You turned your flaws into fuel. That process is brutal. Most people avoid it. You embraced it. And that is why you are different now. They sense the difference even if they cannot articulate it. Your presence feels heavier. Your words feel measured. Your energy feels contained. You are not desperate anymore. Desperation leaks. It begs. It compromises. You replaced it with patience. And patience is terrifying to those who rely on urgency to manipulate outcomes. When you are patient, you cannot be rushed. When you cannot be rushed, you cannot be cornered. When you cannot be cornered, you cannot be controlled. That is the shift keeping them awake at night. Understand this clearly. The moment you stopped competing for attention, you started competing with your former self. And that is a battle no one else can interfere with. You are no longer trying to outshine them. You are trying to outgrow yesterday's version of you. That kind of competition is relentless. It has no audience, no finish line, no applause, just progress. And progress made in silence becomes power, real power, the kind that does not need to announce itself because it is evident in your discipline, in your focus, in your refusal to fold under pressure. They thought isolation would weaken you. They assumed you would crawl back, hungry for validation. Instead, you built resilience. You trained your mind to operate without constant reassurance. You proved to yourself that you can survive alone. That realization changes a person. Once you know you can stand without support, you stop tolerating instability disguised as connection. You stop accepting half-hearted loyalty. You stop shrinking to maintain fragile bonds. You become selective, strategic, untouchable, and that is why they are restless. Because you are no longer available for manipulation. You are no longer reacting to provocation. You are no longer seeking approval from people who never planned to give it freely. You are moving with intent, with precision, with a quiet intensity that makes them question everything. They are losing sleep because you figured out the one secret they hoped you never would. You do not need them to win. And once a person learns that truth, there is no returning to who they used to be. Do you know what truly unsettles them now? It is not your success. It is your detachment. Success can be envied, it can be copied, it can be criticized, but detachment cannot be controlled. When you stopped reacting emotionally to every slight, every whisper, every subtle act of disrespect, you took away their leverage. They used to pull your strings with doubt, with exclusion, with carefully timed praise. Now there are no strings attached. You cut them yourself. And a puppet that cuts its own strings becomes something far more dangerous than the puppeteer ever imagined. You began to understand that emotional control is the highest form of dominance, not dominance over others, but dominance over yourself. They expected you to explode. They expected you to defend, to argue, to chase closure. Instead, you observed, you listened, you learned who was genuine and who was strategic. And when you finally stepped back, you did it without drama, no announcement, no revenge, just absence. That absence echoed louder than any confrontation ever could, because silence forces reflection, and reflection makes people uncomfortable. When you win alone, you realize something brutal. Most alliances were temporary conveniences. People align with you when it benefits them. They cheer when your light reflects on them. But when your growth requires solitude, they call it arrogance. When your discipline requires distance, they call it selfishness. Labels are their defense mechanism. If they can define you negatively, they can justify their insecurity. But you stop trying to correct their perception. You let them misunderstand you. Because clarity within yourself matters more than validation from them. Isolation sharpened your perception. You started noticing patterns, the fake encouragement, the subtle competition masked as friendship, the strategic support that vanished when you no longer served a purpose. You saw it all, not with anger, but with awareness. And awareness changes how you move. You stopped over-explaining your intentions. You stopped revealing your vulnerabilities to those who had not earned access. You built boundaries so strong that only respect could cross them. That transformation is not loud, but it is powerful. It shifts the energy in every room you enter. They are losing sleep because your growth exposed their stagnation. Your discipline exposed their excuses. Your calm exposed their chaos. Every time you choose consistency over comfort, you indirectly challenge their complacency. And people resent silent mirrors. You became that mirror. Without saying a word, your actions reflect what they could be doing, but are not. That reflection breeds discomfort. Discomfort breeds resentment. And resentment keeps them awake, replaying your evolution in their minds while you rest peacefully in your progress. Winning alone also taught you patience in a way they will never understand. You no longer chase quick validation. You invest in long-term dominance. You are building habits, skills, mental resilience that compound over time. They chase moments. You build momentum. They seek applause. You seek mastery. That difference seems small at first, but over months, over years, it becomes a gap so wide it cannot be crossed. And when they finally notice how far ahead you have moved, it is already too late for them to catch up without radical change. But here is the darkest truth of all. You are no longer motivated by proving them wrong. You are motivated by proving yourself limitless. That shift makes you unstoppable. Revenge burns fast and fades. Self-mastery burns slow and eternal. When your drive is internal, it cannot be manipulated externally. No insult can derail it. No rejection can weaken it. No betrayal can redirect it. You built your ambition on self-respect, not external recognition. And self-respect is not negotiable. So while they lie awake, crafting narratives about your transformation, you are sleeping with a clear mind. While they analyze your silence, you are executing your strategy. While they wonder how you detached so completely, you are reinforcing your independence with every disciplined decision. They thought your strength came from them. They thought your confidence required their approval. Now they see the truth too late. Your power was always internal. You just needed solitude to discover it. And once you discovered it, you became something they cannot compete with, cannot control, and cannot comprehend. You feel it now, don't you? The shift from survival to strategy. There was a time when you were simply trying to endure the doubt, the criticism, the subtle sabotage. But somewhere in the silence, endurance evolved into calculation. You stopped absorbing chaos and started studying it. You stopped reacting emotionally and started responding intentionally. That transformation is invisible to most people, but they sense it. The energy around you is no longer defensive. It is deliberate. And deliberate individuals are hard to defeat because nothing they do is accidental anymore. They are losing sleep because you are no longer accessible, not physically, but psychologically. They cannot read you like they used to. Your expressions are measured. Your words are minimal. Your moves are precise. You used to reveal your frustration. Now you conceal your strategy. You used to seek reassurance. Now you trust your preparation. That internal shift unsettles those who relied on your transparency to predict you. When people cannot predict you, they cannot position themselves against you. And when they cannot position themselves, they feel exposed. Winning alone reshaped your standards. You no longer tolerate environments that suffocate your potential. You no longer entertain conversations that drain your focus. You no longer attach yourself to people who celebrate your weakness, but feel threatened by your strength. Solitude raised your expectations. It taught you the value of your time, your energy, your attention. And once you understand your value, you stop negotiating it. That refusal to negotiate confuses those who once benefited from your flexibility. There is something deeply unsettling about a person who does not need constant validation. You walk into rooms without scanning for approval. You speak without overanalyzing reactions. You leave without seeking permission. That level of self-containment feels like arrogance to those who depend on social affirmation. But it is not arrogance. It is alignment. You aligned your actions with your vision. You aligned your discipline with your ambition. And once alignment is established, distractions lose their power. They thought pressure would break you. They applied it subtly. Doubt here, exclusion there, passive resistance when you advance too quickly. But pressure did not crush you. It refined you. Like steel, you hardened under intensity. Every setback became data. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every delay became preparation. You stopped interpreting obstacles as rejection and started seeing them as redirection. That perspective shift is lethal because once you stop fearing obstacles, you start using them. And here is what truly disturbs them. You are no longer competing in their arena. You built your own. You stopped measuring success by their standards. You defined your own metrics. Your progress is not public. Your victories are not always visible, but they are real, and they compound quietly. While they argue over temporary wins, you are stacking long-term advantages, skill by skill, habit by habit, decision by decision. That quiet accumulation of power is invisible until it is undeniable. Isolation did not make you cold, it made you clear. Clear about who deserves access to your world, clear about what aligns with your purpose, clear about what you will never tolerate again. Clarity eliminates confusion, and confusion is where manipulation thrives. When you are clear, you are decisive. When you are decisive, you are efficient. When you are efficient, you move faster than those stuck in emotional hesitation. That speed, fueled by clarity, creates distance between you and them. Now they watch from afar, trying to understand how you transformed without external support. They whisper theories. They minimize your growth to protect their ego. They convince themselves you were lucky. But deep down, they know luck does not create discipline. Luck does not create resilience. Luck does not create emotional control. Those qualities are forged in solitude, and you paid the price in silence. You learned to enjoy your own company. That is the ultimate freedom. When you are comfortable alone, no one can threaten you with abandonment. When you are self-sufficient, no one can manipulate you with withdrawal. You are no longer afraid of losing people who cannot align with your path. That fear used to anchor you. Now it has dissolved. And this is why they are restless. Because you no longer orbit around their expectations. You are charting your own course, guided by internal conviction rather than external noise. You became strategic, self-contained, disciplined, not loud, not reckless, just intentional. And intentional individuals are unpredictable to those who move impulsively. They are losing sleep not because you attacked them, but because you transcended them. You stepped beyond their reach, beyond their control, beyond their understanding. And the most unsettling part, you did it alone. It ends where it truly began. Inside your mind, not in their whispers, not in their opinions, not in their restless nights. This entire transformation was internal before it ever became visible. You did not wake up powerful. You built it thought by thought, discipline by discipline, choice by choice. And now, as they lie awake trying to decode your evolution, you are no longer concerned with being understood. You are focused on being unstoppable. There is a certain darkness required to win alone, not evil, not cruelty, but the willingness to detach emotionally from outcomes you cannot control. You had to accept that some people would misunderstand you. Some would resent you. Some would quietly hope you fail so their comfort remains undisturbed. That realization could have made you bitter. Instead, it made you independent. You stopped trying to correct narratives. You let results speak. You let silence defend you. You let time expose everything. You learned that power is not loud. It does not announce itself with constant updates. It does not beg for recognition. Real power moves quietly, builds patiently, and strikes only when necessary. You stopped revealing your hand. You stopped showing your full strength. You became selective with your energy, and that restraint amplified your presence. When you finally act, it carries weight because it is rare. When you finally speak, it carries depth because it is deliberate. They are losing sleep because your consistency is relentless. Motivation fades for most people. Excitement burns out, but you replaced emotion with structure. You built systems that function even when you do not feel inspired. You trained yourself to execute regardless of mood. That level of self-control feels almost mechanical to those driven by impulse. They cannot understand how you keep moving without applause, without encouragement, without visible reward. They do not realize that your reward is progress itself. Winning alone also stripped away your fear of loss. You already experienced isolation. You already walked through uncertainty without reassurance. So what can they threaten you with now? Rejection, you survived it. Silence, you mastered it. Distance, you grew in it. Once you remove the fear of losing others, you become fearless in your decisions. You negotiate from strength. You walk away from disrespect without hesitation. You choose growth over comfort every single time. And here is the final truth that keeps them awake. You are not finished. This is not your peak. This is your foundation. While they exhaust themselves analyzing who you have become, you are focused on who you are becoming next. Your ambition is not reactive anymore. It is visionary. You are not trying to prove a point. You are building a legacy, quietly, strategically, independently. That kind of forward momentum is terrifying to anyone who thought your silence meant surrender. You understand now that loneliness was never your enemy. It was your training ground. It forced you to confront your weaknesses. It forced you to develop self-trust. It forced you to generate internal validation instead of chasing it externally. And once you cultivated that internal validation, you became immune to manipulation. Compliments do not inflate you. Criticism does not break you. You operate from balance, not from desperation. So continue. Continue building in silence. Continue refining your discipline. Continue choosing long-term dominance over short-term validation. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them question how you became so calm, so focused, so untouchable. The answer is simple but painful. You stopped needing them. You stopped seeking approval. You stopped waiting to be chosen.